right, welcome to the March board meeting. Let's get started. Please rise for a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. First announcement, Mrs. Armstrong is dialing in. Is she online? All right, she's on. Board met in executive session to discuss some personnel and legal issues. Secretary correspondence? Nothing. Chester County IU report?
So as I reported last week, the IU is also in the budget process, same as we are. I wanted to take a moment if we could have a little dialogue so that I might be able to take your temperature a little bit. Great Valley did not vote to approve the budget last year for the CCIU. As we're in budget process this year, they do things a lot differently than we do here in our home district. I've not seen much pushback. As we're budgeting within Act 1, it seems to me that that's kind of the intention, to have the increase within Act 1. I have approached some other CCIU board members and said, I'm a little confused here. I see some questions. Great Valley has some concerns over the last few years on the escalation of the budget. And quite honestly, I really think that the sentiment is that the IU, especially our IU in Chester County, is exemplary. It's phenomenal. But I think just like as we all face in our home districts, it becomes always a choice between cost versus benefit. And I don't see us on the board level there looking at some of these high-ticket items in the same way that we do on the home board. So my feeling is I agree that they are exemplary. They have wonderful product. We've had some issues with things. They get worked out along the way. I think every district is the same. But from a fiduciary standpoint, I truly believe that we should be looking at that budget the exact same way we are looking at our homeschool budgets, with just as much power and ability and might. But I'm not certain that that's the sentiment among the other districts in the county. Now, I can't change that, but I guess what I'm asking you is, I would like to continue doing this work the same way we do the work in Great Valley. I would like to look at ways to reduce that budget without reducing the integrity of teaching and learning and programs and everything else. If that's not the sentiment of the board, if we could just talk about it for a couple minutes and you can give me a little more direction, because we meet on Wednesday night, and what you decide or ask me to do tonight is going to determine what I do on Wednesday.
Well, my feeling is that's your role on the IU board. I mean, within the constraints of, we're one of 14, right? So I would push it and challenge it, and if you can get 7 more. Or
6 more.
Well,
it's 12.
Oh, 12, sorry.
That's okay.
But if you can get the majority moving in the direction, then you're that much better off, but we should constantly challenge where we can, especially when all we do is get handed a bill. We had to understand it and really stand behind it, because like last year, it was kind of hard to stand behind. That's my thought. I don't know, anybody's got other thoughts?
Okay, anybody?
I mean, I would agree with that. So I think that's what you should be doing anyway, but yes, don't change. Keep going.
Thank you, I have a direction.
That was easy. All right, legislative report. That'll be easy too.
Actually, it's a little bit lengthy. Legislation is finally back in session after nearly a month off. With the wrap-up of budget hearings last week, the legislature is back at work. The House was in session this past week, and while they won't return to Harrisburg until April 9, the Senate comes back next week for a double dose of session, staying in town for 2 weeks before breaking until mid-April. Behind the scenes, multiple versions of state budgets are being crafted, questions are being asked, and momentum is building, all of which still has the potential to catapult us to an early budget. But hey, it's still only March, right? School safety has rightfully taken a critical place in the middle of both the policy and the budget discussions, and there is serious conversation across both parties and both chambers about increasing the state funding available for school safety and security initiatives. We're likely still a long way from any final decisions, but the fact that there is recognition that this is a priority issue and that additional state investment is required is extremely positive. This week, the House was focused on debating whether or not to reduce the size of the General Assembly. They actually are looking at reducing both the House and the Senate. This inevitably deciding to send the bill doing just that to the Senate. The bill, which proposes a constitutional amendment, would need to be passed in identical form in 2 consecutive sessions before going to the voters. The bill was amended to reduce both the size of the House and the Senate, so if the bill passes this year, it will need to be passed again in identical form next session as well. In the House committee action, the House Education Committee held a public hearing to discuss the important issue of school safety. Discussion at the hearing covered everything from more funding for school safety, mental health supports, school infrastructure needs, and arming teachers. The underlying message from the panel of education associations was that state funding was required and that there was no one-size-fits-all approach to school safety. Each LEA needs to have discussions and make decisions about what was best for their students, staff, and community. The House State Government Committee amended and approved House Bill 209, which establishes the independent office of the repealer to review and evaluate statutes and regulations and make recommendations to the General Assembly and state agencies about whether a statute or regulation should be modified, revised, or appealed. Action on the House floor. The House approved the following bills. House Bill 153, shepherded by Representative Knowles out of Schuylkill County, amends the PA Constitution to reduce the size of the PA House from 203 members to 151 members. That's referring to the bill we were discussing earlier. And the PA Senate from 50 to 38 members. The vote passed 109 to 80. So now the bill goes to the Senate for consideration. House Resolution 291, shepherded by Representative Pfeiffer of Wayne County, directs the DCED in consultation with the IFO, and that's the Department of Community Economic Development, with the Department of Revenue, counties, municipalities, and school districts to conduct a study to examine the efficacy of replacing local EIT, that's earned income tax collection, under Act 32 with the statewide EIT collection orchestrated by the Department of Revenue. Right now, some municipalities have the EIT, others don't. The vote was 188 to nothing in favor. This is a resolution, so passage by the Senate is not required. On the Senate floor calendar, the following bills remain on the Senate calendar. Senate Bill 653, shepherded by Senator Brown of Lehigh County, consolidates the collection of several local tax enabling acts under Act 32. And Senate Resolution 248, shepherded by Senator Eichelberger of Blair County, which as amended resolves that the Senate opposes the use of Keystone exams as a single high-stakes graduation requirement and recommends that the PDE develop alternative assessments to demonstrate career and college readiness. And then finally, just this afternoon, the United States Supreme Court refused to hear the case of the Pennsylvania, it was brought to them by members of the Pennsylvania Assembly asking that or that they felt that the state Supreme Court overstepped its bounds by drawing up the new district maps for legislature. The Supreme Court said we will not hear the case, that's a state action, and that the state legislature had plenty of time to draw up the new maps. They did not meet the deadline, and that's when the state Supreme Court stepped in and redistricted according to what the present map is. That's not the last chapter of that. I'm sure there'll be plenty more appeals on that. And that's that. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no student council reports tonight. Any other reports? Information technology?
Yep. The Instructional Technology Subcommittee met on Tuesday, March 13th, during which time the subcommittee members experienced 2 applications that are used in Great Valley Elementary classrooms. Mrs. Beck led the committee through Dreambox activities. Dreambox is an online adaptive mathematics program that supports the elementary math curriculum. Dreambox adjusts to the students' individual responses and requires students to consider various strategies for solving a mathematics problem. In addition, the system has a robust data management system that allows teachers to review students' performance. Mr. Rasmussen demonstrated the Seesaw application and explained how teachers are currently using the online tool to support their instruction and increase student engagement. For example, Mr. Rasmussen demonstrated the record, draw, and submit feature in the program to highlight the ease and simplicity of using Seesaw to capture a student's thinking. Finally, the subcommittee discussed inviting high school students to the April meeting so that the students can share their iPad experiences. The subcommittee continues to invite questions and thoughts from the board for consideration at all times. I can also add that I was at the meeting, and I really liked when I saw Dreambox, and I saw how there was feedback that's sent back to the parents on like almost a daily or weekly basis. And I think with a lot of the applications that we have and we're starting to use in the classroom, I like that little extra bit that ties it to the parent right away. And I'm hoping that more of our activities and applications we use have that kind of feature in them. Anyone else have questions?
That's a good
Thanks, guys.
overview for what's going on, and
Yep.
I think we have some presentations coming up down the road as far as what the technology is, so it's great. All righty. All right, the student recognition is next, or I shouldn't say just students recognition. In the future, we're gonna start doing recognitions on all the business meetings every month, so there'll be a little bit every month rather than 3 times a year where we spend an hour doing it. So tonight we have several groups that are gonna be recognized, or several students from different groups that'll be recognized. Or, I keep saying students. We also recognize faculty members or teachers or whoever who get recognized by different organizations. And the first one we have up is a PASBO recognition. Chuck?
Yeah, I'd like to recognize Melissa Claus tonight. She's our purchasing coordinator for the district. She was recently awarded the status as the Pennsylvania Registered School Business Specialist by the Board of Directors for PASBO, that's the Pennsylvania Association of School Business Officials. In order to be granted that status by PASBO, you must meet a high personal, ethical, and professional standards established for the program, and they include a long formal education experience and a lot of continuing education. So we want to congratulate Missy on her attainment of this status and invite her up to. No, you got it.
Good evening. I'm excited to share that 40 students from Catherine D. Markley Elementary School, grades 1 through 5, participated in the 6th Annual Rotary Club of Phoenixville's Spelling Bee. The Rotary's signature event has raised close to $50,000 over the past 6 years, and all of the monies raised support local organizations for those in need. The Rotary's annual Spelling Bee is divided into 3 divisions. Division 1 is for first graders, and this year they had 63 participants. Division 2 is for second and third graders with 132 participants, and Division 3, fourth and fifth graders with 78 participants. I'm proud to share that Katie Markley students did very well in the competition. In Division 1, Shalika Bhattacharya placed second, and Akshara Prasad placed third. If you would come up, please. And then in Division 2, Emily Chi came in first place. So Emily, come on up, please.
Hey, good evening. My name is Dave Offit, and I have the privilege of being the Scoutmaster for Troop 106. I've been the Scoutmaster there now for almost 12 years, and I've had the great good fortune I counted up the other night, to see 21 Great Valley High School students achieve the rank of Eagle in Troop 106. A few of them, Mrs. Ravenfeld to my right, 3 of her sons became Eagles, which is fantastic. Mr. Barrett, across the way, his son Jonathan was an Eagle Scout a couple years back and about to has another one here. I'd like to thank the school board and Great Valley School District for taking the time to recognize Eagle Scouts. You know, it's not a formal part of the school. However, Scouting is an important program for the entire community and for our nation. And tonight, we're recognizing 2 Scouts that have achieved the highest rank in Scouting. Have gone all the way up through the ranks, from age 11 through age 18. Have learned leadership, life-saving abilities, first aid, and a host of other skills along the way. And I'd like to call up Evan Anderson and Jeffrey Barrett. And sure.
One thing Mr. Offutt didn't mention, that both Evan and Jeffrey's Eagle Scout project benefited the school district. They both did projects over at the Katie Markley Garden. So in addition to supporting the Scouts, we also got something in return. So thank you, boys.
The Great Valley Education Association had asked to have a recognition for the board.
Good evening. Nikki Salvatico, President of the Great Valley Education Association, and tonight we get to recognize you. We're a little late. We always are a little late with Board Appreciation Month, but we do that on purpose because we feel, as you said, Dave, giving back to the school district, is we want to continue your legacy for the time that you donate and volunteer as board members, because we know that is beyond the hours any of us could count. So in order to do that and become, keep your name and the history of you serving, is we like to donate books to each library. And inside the book is going to be a dedication that has all your names listed and the years that you've served. So each library will get a new book, and we wait, because it's the Caldecott winners, so we wait for all the medalists to come out, which is after January. We can't get them to change that. So one of the books is Dear Martin. We have two. And how these books are chosen is our librarians are polled and asked which books would you prefer and which would best serve the library. So this is how it's done. Hello Universe, two of the libraries chose. And one is called Charlie and Mouse, and that for some reason must be very popular. It's been about a month and a half, and I'm still waiting. Today was delivery. I didn't get it, now April 6th. Silent Days, Silent Dreams, and La Princess and the Pea. So these will all have a label inside in your honor with all your names listed. And we do want to thank you for everything you do for the school district, the time, the dedication, and whenever you would like to check these out, I'm sure they will make sure they're available for you. So thank you.
Well, on behalf of the school board, thank you very much to all the teachers and all that you do for the students here. So thank you also. One last thing before all of you go home is we have our high school representative here who sits on the board. She's our alternate, but she's here a lot. So she'll give us an update on what's going on in the high school. And then you guys can all go home and do homework. Well, some of you at least.
There's been lots of activity at the high school in the past week. Last Wednesday, students planned and executed a walkout in honor of the school shooting in Parkland, Florida last month. It was certainly a meaningful gathering, and we were all very grateful for the support from our administration. Also, the Share the Love Club wrote positive notes on Post-its and put one on each locker in the school. I think these decorations were a surprise to most students, but the Post-its circulated the school for a few days and were a reminder of positivity for all of us. Spring sports are starting to compete, and the lacrosse teams both had scrimmages this evening. Not sure of the results of them yet, although everyone seems much more excited about their March Madness brackets right now. The students in the Denmark exchange seem to be having a great time with their exchange students and went to New York and Washington, D.C. with them last week. And the Spanish language immersion trip leaves on Friday. All these activities are making the school pretty busy right now, and everyone's looking forward to the relief of spring break next week.
All right, thank you very much.
Dave, if I may, Ms. Field, I just wanted to comment on the Share the Love Club project. And I'm not exaggerating, 8 people on my Facebook shared that, 8 parents actually shared that posting. And I read it, and personally, I thought, what a phenomenal way to honor the 17 in Florida by doing something for the people that y'all see every minute of every day. I thought it was a really, really heartfelt, wonderful thing, and one of the reasons why I am so proud to be a member of this community. So thank you and the student body. I think that was a wonderful thing.
And I think there was a picture on the webpage for anybody that didn't see it of the lockers. So it's on the GVSD webpage. So, all right, before we move on, if anybody wants to gather their parents and go home, you're welcome to do so right now. Otherwise, you can stay for really exciting budget presentations. All right. Next thing on the agenda, superintendent's report, budget update.
As we have been over the last few weeks and months, this is an update on where we are with the budget at this time.
Not going to belabor too much on this. You've seen a lot of this before, but these are the major increases in the budget. As you can see from these numbers, the biggest impact on the budget is special education and benefits. And in the benefits, it's kind of split between healthcare and pension. Other schools continues to be, that's actually part of special education. That's a lot predominated by approved private schools, by private residential rehab schools, by charter school. Special education costs have been going up, even though our charter school numbers seem to be stagnating, but the cost for that has been the cost for the special education has been going up.
And those, just so we're clear, right, the schools, not the charter schools, but the other special ed schools, those are schools where services that we can't provide ourselves.
Correct.
We send students over there for those services, whatever they might be, because it's best suited for the students, right? All right.
And in other financing, we had a reduction in debt service, which now kind of coincides with the almost reduction in the capital reserve fund down to almost nothing. So in order to do, and this was planned by the board for many years, to continue to fund the capital projects, this will kind of be an ongoing thing now. So the projects for next year, which include the roofing project, which is on the agenda we discussed last week. There's also a couple other big projects on for the summer. Roofing projects, a little under 3.2 million. The water main at the high school that we talked about in the past is on there. That's a couple $100,000. We have to reroute the water main from the back driveway out to Phoenixville Pike. And there's a fire panel at General Wayne that has to be rewired and replaced. And the technology, so we did not add anything in this realm here, in this area. Technology, we allocated 800,000 for one-to-one to continue the one-to-one program, and to also kind of give it a more stable funding area so that it's now in the general fund.
One of the things also for the one-to-one, it was planned, if you remember, when we rolled out the timeline, it was planned to add fourth grade for next school year based upon our budgeting and looking at next year and at the gap that we have in our budgetary, in our revenue for next year. We are proposing that we delay the inclusion of fourth grade. We will still continue to professionally develop the teachers with the iPads, but we'll delay the one-to-one for fourth grade until the following year. So as you'll see as we move forward, it will minimize, it will slightly decrease the need moving forward.
Chuck, I just wanted to go back to the debt service. So that reduction, that becomes the new baseline, right? That we're reducing that this year, and then going forward, unless we have future borrowing for who knows what reason, that's a new, the debt
Right.
service continues to, that continues to be an addition to our funds. Okay, thank you.
In the budget build, you've seen this before. As was said earlier, most of our budget is going towards staffing. That's now down to 5%. This is the other schools I was talking about that is going up. It's almost $9 million right now, and that's tech school, that's programs at the Chester County Intermediate Unit, that's the approved private schools, the private residential rehab, that's all the charter schools, and brick and mortar and cyber charter schools, and the special ed components of the charter schools. Also includes some settlements with parents that are going to special schools. Transportation, infrastructure, and the infrastructure is elevated because of the addition of the additional transfer there that was normally mostly the maintenance area. Operating costs, and operating costs now include the one-to-one technology in there, and the budget reserve is down to $300,000. And so this just kind of shows you a combination of all these things here. Revenues, we have projected revenues of $99.7 million between local, which is predominantly most of it, state and federal. So that leaves us with a budget gap of about $6 million. We're proposing the use of reserves of $3.6 million. We've gone over that at prior meetings, leaving us a budget gap of about $2.4 million. The estimated revenue we would receive from Act 1 would be about $1.9 million. And at this time, that the board's only authorized to prepare a budget within the Act 1 index, so that's going to be the max no matter what we do. So depending on the final budget, the absolute maximum the taxes could increase is 2.4%. Last year's increase, as you know, was 0%. Based on all the adjustments we made to revenue expenditures, we're still about $500,000 short, but we're confident that between revenues, expenditure adjustments, and reserves, we should be able to get this into a balance using the reserves we're recommending by June 4th. The preliminary budget will show an additional use of the reserves because it has to be balanced until we make that. And again, when we talk about the preliminary budget, it's not the final budget. It's just the budget that you must have adopted in advance. So.
For the staffing, you'll see a decrease, and we're talking about this decrease through retirements and the elimination of co-teaching, not complete elimination, but those partnerships where we've taken a year to look at the effectiveness of co-teaching partnerships, and where we're able to redeploy those staff, we certainly will. When we're looking at retirements, there are certain retirements that will be replaced in order to allow programs to continue. However, we will reallocate staff based on certification and ability to carry out the programs in a highly efficient way. Elementary, we are projecting a no change, meaning there will be changes in staff, but no change to add additional staff. As you recall, in the fall, the board had decided to move a large community. So of course, in moving a community from one elementary school to another with the redistricting, that will also have some of our teachers moving as well. But the net of increasing elementary staff, we're not foreseeing that to happen at this time. We believe we can realign the staff to meet the needs. In special education, we're talking about an increase of 3. That would be the psychologist that we had spoken about and Dr. Wexler presented on last week. Elementary autistic support, speech and language. In the area of teaching and learning, we would add an English language development coordinator, and that is mostly to oversee our great increase in our ELL population, our English language learning population. So based, as of right now, our estimated total would be a net of 0. So it would be not adding positions. Very clearly, it would be a redeployment of existing staff or hiring for certain staff that are specific for certification needs in order to keep programs going.
So to that comment, Regina, I just wanted to point out that it's clear in the documentation that's in the board meeting that there's 2 French teachers at the high school who are retiring, and I think those are the only 2 French teachers who are currently at the high school. So I'm interested to know how we'll cover that in the future, and will it be covered?
Absolutely. So that is a great example. So we may have a number of people retiring. We don't necessarily need to hire a 1-to-1 ratio of those retiring, but that is a great example of, in our existing pool of professional staff, if we don't have certificated French teachers, we would need to hire French teachers to keep that program going. And we are committed to doing that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
This is a look at the proposed millage for the budget that you currently have. It's, as we said, the Act 1 index is 2.1% or 2.4%. This would be the impact on the average and the median homeowner in Great Valley if the increase was 2.4%. So as I said, almost 2/3 of our residential taxpayers fall at or below the median. So the average is kind of inflated by some very large homes. This is just another chart that we started a couple years ago. It shows the comparison of what the index that you have to work under has been since its inception, which was the 2007-8 school year, what the actual Great Valley millage increase has been, and then a third column for what the Social Security cost of living adjustments have been over those years also. And then this last chart before the calendar just shows the current tax rates of the Chester County schools. And you'll note that there are 4 green bars: Great Valley, T, Unionville, and Avon those four school districts, including us, does not have an earned income tax. Although I will note that we had to notify our staff and everybody a couple months ago that East Whiteland is going to raise its earned income tax from 0.5% to 1%. So, but we get none of that. I know there's a lot of people that feel we get some of that. We get none of that. If we got earned income tax, our millage rate would be substantially less than 20 mils. It'd probably be in the 15, 16 mil range, because it's a lot of income. And based on projected millage increases, we will probably fall below Westchester as they're applying for exceptions next year. Their millage will leapfrog over us. And then this is the calendar. Really, the next official action date you have is April 16th. You did the opt-out resolution, so that's when the preliminary budget will need to be adopted. We will then have a final budget available for inspection it says 20 days before. That's just a legal thing. We'll have it available on the 16th or shortly thereafter. And then we have to advertise on May the 24th in the final budget. While it technically doesn't need to be adopted till June 30th, we have it scheduled for June 4th.
Questions? All right, just to remind everybody, there's, excuse me, a finance meeting on April 2nd, Monday, day after Easter, so there'll be more in-depth look at this. Also, I want to make sure, Chuck, that on the 2nd, if we could go over all of the reserve funds.
Sure.
The different accounts and
Yep.
balances and et cetera. All righty. Superintendent's report.
Once again, we have a lot of fabulous news to share. This is certainly not an inclusive list of all of our wonderful things happening, but some definite highlights. Our outstanding artist, a congratulations to Great Valley High School student Annabelle Taylor, who was named a finalist in the Wharton Esherick Museum's imprint competition. The museum hosts an annual high school competition open to art classes from the Chester, Bucks, Delaware, Montgomery, and Philadelphia counties. Annabelle and fellow students Alex Stribe, Olivia Deegan, and Nikki Payne will have their prints displayed in the 2019 Wharton Esherick Philadelphia Airport Show from March through September 2018. So great opportunity to see our students' work. Our first LEGO League, or affectionately known as FLL, middle school student Brighton Risch and Katie Markley student Cooper Risch are members of the Hydrocorns, an 8-member team of elementary and middle school students who comprise a first LEGO League team. The team recently earned an invitation to attend the 2018 FLL World Festival in April. The team's efforts this year are focused on a hydrodynamics challenge. The team invented a project to measure water that finds exactly where it was wasted. They call their invention a Fitbit for water pipes. After winning several awards for its work, the team was invited to the 2018 First LEGO League World Festival in April for the second consecutive year. Worldwide, only 200 teams out of 32,000 qualify to attend the festival. Our 2018 Middle School VEX Robotics Champions, Team 7517C, one of the Great Valley Middle School VEX Robotics teams, is the 2018 Middle School VEX Robotics State Champions. The team members are 8th graders and a 7th grader. The team's next stop is the World Championship in Louisville, Kentucky, and that is at the end of April. We will look forward to honoring that team and the members of the team, as well as Mr. Ruckelhaus, after that competition. Great Valley Middle School teams represented Great Valley School District incredibly well, with these teams also winning awards at the state champion. So we had the Think Award, the Judges Award, the Sportsmanship Award, the Educate Award, and the Service Award. So Great Valley really represented at the robotics competition. Finally, Read Across America, schools across the district celebrated Dr. Seuss's birthday and Read Across America. Classrooms welcomed guest readers, and students and staff participated in a variety of events designed to highlight the love of reading. Our middle school architecture club has been meeting since the beginning of October, and participants have learned about various styles of classical architecture in preparation to design a classically themed birdhouse. 14 students presented their blueprints in February to an audience of parents, architects, and builders. All of the students will learn from professionals about the building process, and the culminating activity, the students will be organized into groups to actually construct 4 birdhouses. The 2018 Prudential Spirit of Community Award, congratulations to juniors Grace Fury and Aradati Knitter on being honored for their exemplary volunteer service with the President's Volunteer Service Award granted by the Prudential Spirit of Community Awards program. The program, affiliated with the National Association of Secondary School Principals recognizes students who have volunteered significant amounts of their time to serve their communities and their country. Our quiz bowl team, the students did a fantastic job, the middle school students did a fantastic job at the Ichabod Invitational Quiz Bowl Tournament. The undefeated GVA team finished in first place in the open division, and the Great Valley B team finished in third place in the open division. The Great Valley C team finished the tournament in fourth place in the novice division, and several students were recognized for their high scores. We have a great legacy of our Quiz Bowl, Great Valley School District Quiz Bowl, and Mr. Bernard McCauley will be taking his team to the CCIU this week, Wednesday evening? Oh, Tuesday evening. Barring all weather reports, hopefully we'll be at the CCIU at 7:30 tomorrow evening with our, at the Chester County Quiz Bowl competition, which there's a great running track record going there, so thanks to Mr. McCauley. The Citadel Heart of Learning, the General Wayne kindergarten teacher Kelly DeMillion was selected at Great Valley's district winner in the 2018 Citadel Heart of Learning Awards program. The Citadel Heart of Learning Award was created by Citadel and the Chester County Intermediate Unit to recognize and celebrate fantastic teachers in Chester County. This year, students, parents, teachers, and administration sent in more than 2,300 nominations for hundreds of teachers across Chester County. All of the 15 finalists from Chester County will be honored at a banquet on May 8th at the Desmond Hotel, at which 3 grand prize winners, one for each level, will be announced for elementary school, middle school, and high school. So great congratulations to Mrs. DeMillion, and best of luck on May 8th. In General Wayne as well, our second grade students presented their Dog Expo 2018 as a culminating activity of what they'd learned as part of their nonfiction unit. Students welcomed teachers, parents, and community members to an interactive expo, which included posters, live demonstrations, plays, iMovies, interactive quizzes, games, and more. Students also completed their Work Like a Dog project, in which they raised money for the Mainline Deputy Dog organization. They presented a check for $500 to that organization, and that's what you see in the picture. Katie Markley, in an effort to celebrate heritage, they hosted their annual Heritage Night at the end of February. The night celebrates the culture and backgrounds of KDM students and their families. And the pride of Mrs. Morris can be seen on many of the pictures that are available online. Treats for our troops, the Great Valley High School Interact Club held a Tasty Cakes for Troops drive, and the club sent 80 pounds of treats along with a thank you Valentine card to the troops. And last week, many people had experienced this. The Teaching and Learning Department hosted a learning adventure night for students in kindergarten through 8th grade. Students participated in interactive activities that reinforced many of the concepts they are learning in the classroom. There were many, many volunteers. The Teaching and Learning Department and many of our professional staff volunteered their time to present different exhibits and opportunities for students to learn. And I believe there was some learning done by parents as well. A lot of fun. Our upcoming activities, pending any awful weather as is being predicted, we'll just have to block that. March 20th, Charlestown 5th grade musical. March 21st, Katie Markley 4th grade concert at 7 p.m. General Wayne winter concert, grades 2 and 3. March 22nd, the middle school arts night, Katie Markley literacy night, and Charlestown 5th grade musical. March 26th to the 30th, next week, is spring break. April 2nd is the school board finance committee meeting. April 5th, Katie Markley 5th grade musical and the middle school PTO meeting. April 9th is the school board work session. April 10th is the facilities committee and the instructional technology committee meetings. April 11th, Sugartown 2nd and 3rd grade vocal concert assembly, Charlestown PTO meeting. April 12th, 13th, and 14th is the high school spring musical. I also wanted to take a moment and thank the board members who recommended a speaker series, and that speaker series will begin this spring. We have tentatively planned, we're waiting to hear back from some of our legislative representatives, April 18th for a community safety forum. That will include legislative representatives, as well as our Director of Safety and mental health specialists, speaking about our physical and emotional safety in our buildings and in the community. April 23rd, Clearing the Air on Vaping, and that will be a program that will be offered April 23rd in the evening for students and parents to learn about vaping and warning signs. May 2nd is winning the mental game, and this is a rescheduled event with Kara Bradley and Mitch Green, talking about mindfulness and especially focusing on our student athletes. June 5th is a partnership event which will highlight the number of partnerships that we have with area organizations and highlighting those to make sure our community is aware of those partnerships, especially as we get into the summer. Thank you.
Wow.
A lot.
It's always good to see what's going on in the schools. Kids are amazing here. All right, moving on. Next thing up is public participation for any item up for voting this evening. If you have a comment on a voting item, please come to the podium, state your name, residency. Please try to limit your time to 3 minutes or less so that others may participate. Open up the mic now.
I would like to make some comments about what's up there, but I can't because I don't know what those are. There wasn't anything posted for the public to see regarding what those items were. I remember in the past there have been some things. I know I objected to one a few meetings ago, which was voted down, but this time none of those were made public. I shared some emails with Dave today about that. I think it was today, and he said, "Well, we don't do that. It's not normally done, and it wasn't done when you were on the board, meaning me. And if that's the case, then shame on me." I think you have public comment. The only way the public can comment on something is if they know what it is and what's involved in it. So I would respectfully ask the board to table those items until they are made public so that the public can make comment on those items. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on voting agenda items? All right, seeing none, we'll proceed. First thing up is the consent agenda items. Do I have a motion for 7.01 through 7.12?
Move to approve 7.01 to 7.02? I'm sorry, 7.12.
I'd like to ask a question. Okay, I don't know when.
Do I have a second?
Second?
That's okay. All right, we have a motion. Any questions or comments?
Thank you, still learning. Those items that we're about to vote on were discussed last week. Were they on the public agenda last week? They were, because they were discussed, many of them.
The specifics of details of each individual contract that we see may not have been there, or was not there. Those have not been generally posted until after approvals. I just want to make a comment real quick, because one thing in here is a donation of a baseball scoreboard. I see 2 community members out there who graciously donated some money for it, Drew and Marjorie, so thank you. And also thank you to Jim and Patty, because I think Renahan side were also part of that. So, excuse me, it's always appreciated when community members get involved and do nice things like that, so thank you very much. The baseball team, I'm sure, will appreciate it, as will the rest of the community, so thank you very much. No problem. I know Mr. Renahan well, so I'll let him know. also, we appreciate it, so yes. So, thank you. Oh, sorry, I'm sure there's many others behind the scene too. But yes, everybody, but thank you, yes. Mr. Mahoney also, I don't want him to leave out anybody, so. All right, any other questions or comments? All right, the motion is to approve 701 to 7.12. All those in favor? Jen? We lose you, Jen? All right, we'll move on. All right, motion passes 8-0. Next thing up is personnel items. A motion for approval of 9.01.
Move to approve 9.01.
Second.
Motion second. Any questions? All those in favor? Motion passes 8-0. Next thing up is policies. There's
She voted aye. We had a little issue with the control thing here, so she can hear everything.
okay. And she texted you?
I just, for some reason, she can't talk. So.
She texted you?
She's texting me.
All right. Yeah. So record will reflect it was 9-0. Thank you. All right, policy approvals. First thing up is policies for first reading. Those will be voted on next month. 10.02 is the policies that needed to be re-voted on from earlier this year and adopted. And then 10.03 is policies for second reading and adoption. So do I have a motion for approval for 10.02 and 10.03?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Do I have any questions around or comments around the policies? I think we went over them pretty thoroughly last week. Hopefully. Anybody got any additional questions? All right. All those in favor?
Try it again. You okay?
Jen? Motion passes 9-0. Thank you. All right. There's no other voting items on the agenda. I will reopen the microphone for public comments on any other issues. Again, if you could come to the podium, state your name and residency, and please try to limit your time to 3 minutes so others can participate. We would appreciate it. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Ted Leisling, 2575 White Horse Road, Berwyn, and a previous board member at Great Valley. Just like to begin by thanking all the board members here for your service. We sincerely appreciate what you do. I'd like to maybe first start by just supporting what Mr. Chambers said about the consent agenda items. I went through the agenda and it was woefully short. I mean, there were not the backup documents to support this were not there, and that speaks to transparency. These documents aren't just for the people that are in the school or working here, they're for the public. What I'd like to talk about is maybe a quick look back in history. First of all, you have a budget you're looking at of $106 million, which is it's an awesome amount of money. Back in 2000, we had a recession, and I'm going to go back in history, and that was the dot-com bubble, and most of us were around back then, and it was rough, and it was rough on businesses, it was rough on individuals, but more recently, in 2009, when I served on this board, we hit a really big speed bump, and that was the last housing bubble, and the recession that followed that. As a result of that, we had to do a lot of difficult things, and some of you were there when we had to do them. What happens when you hit a recession? You know, you lose revenue. There's the businesses appeal their taxes, and we were losing $1 million a year, if you all recall, in lost revenue from business taxes, from appeals, and we had, you know, how do you make that up? You can't. And also during that recession too, families suffered. And it's hard for them to make their budget. So no matter what is put up there about, the average price a family pays, it's a lot of money. And it's usually the biggest bill in any household. So what do I recommend, and what do fiscally responsible people recommend at a time like this, especially for school districts? And that is fiscal conservancy. And that's looking at what you're spending, not at what you're taxing, what you're spending your money on. And so far in this budget process, and I haven't attended all the meetings, I haven't seen any of that. I've seen a woeful lack of transparency. And I want to go on the record, because if something happens when we hit the wall, people are going to ask questions. They're going to say, what was your budgeting process? In 2009, 10, 11, it was much more critical. We looked deep at all of the expenses, and you were there. Many of you were there when we did that. We had a 5-year look at the budget. I'd like to stop for a moment and ask a question. What happened to the 5-year look? And that's a question for Chuck Lindeman and for our superintendent. It's important to look into the future. And right now I see this district just building a budget, throwing up one slide and saying, this is how we build a budget. That's not how you budget. And, go to a business school, go to even a high school that's teaching a finance class. And you don't build a budget by just throwing up a couple slides and saying, we'll spend money on this. It's not how it works. So I'd just like to end on that and say once again that there's a lack of transparency here in the budgeting process, and the district needs to be more transparent, not just for the people in the room, but for the public. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bruce Chambers, James Thomas Road. I'll add to those comments as well. I think also that, as Mrs. Burrell mentioned, the IU seems to be building their budget based on what they can tax. That's summarizing what she said over the last 2 meetings. I think that's what the administration here does too. They know they can get 2.4% by getting 5 votes. So that's what they go for. There's no building up of a budget, as Mr. Leisenring had said. At the last meeting, there seemed to be some emphasis on special ed. I sent the email to the board about that, where there was emphasis that our percentage of people who are in special ed is very high. I went back and looked at the records in the state, in the county, and found that there were 4 other districts in Chester County that had rates just as high as ours or higher. Yet our costs are skyrocketing. Theirs aren't. So I think focus needs to be made here. Why are costs going out of control? And I've suggested before very strongly that the reason it is because of the contracts you agreed to. A couple of years ago, you were told not to take it. You did. And the salaries and benefits have gone up 16.8% in 2 years, which is a ridiculous number. No company could survive with that. And a further amplification of that, I looked at the Unionville website today. They just agreed to a contract. They don't have the results of the contract listed yet, but they had a sheet showing the impact, the financial impact. It listed 2 salaries for the teachers there. Starting salary. The starting salary in 2022 in Unionville will be $51,000. That's $2,500 less than what we're paying right now. So 4 years in the future, they're going to be paying $2,500 less than what we're paying now for a starting salary. For a teacher with a master's and 60 credits, it's the same thing. In 4 years from now, they'll still be $3,400 behind what we're paying today. And this is what you agreed to. This is why personnel costs have gone through the roof. It's got to stop. I'll talk about the debt again. $4.2 million in debt. The public has been paying that off. We've paid off buildings and renovations. That money should come back to the public. You're just taking that money and throwing it into the budget. You're not increasing the budget by 6%. You're increasing it by 10%. The budget lists a deficit of $3.5 million. You won't have a deficit of $3.5 million. You never do. The budgets here in the district are never that way. I've showed that to you many times. It doesn't happen. They're never accurate. So the budgets are never correct. So I would ask you to seriously consider all those things when you're looking at the budget. It's beyond my understanding how you can accept a budget that's 39% higher than it was in 2013. And I'll add one more thing and then I'll stop. For 3 years, 2011, 2012, and 2013, the budget was $76 million. The district didn't fall apart. The performance did not decrease. Now you're asking for a 39% increase. That's a humongous increase. What are we getting for that? I haven't seen anything in the last few years. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oops, excuse me. All right, any other board comments?
Dave, I have a question. So we've had a couple citizens speak, and I know that, you know, our superintendent and staff take copious notes. But what is it actually that we're responding to when somebody makes a comment? Like, are we preparing answers specifically when someone asks a question? Or is it our intention to address comments that are made at the lectern? Now, I've been asked by a couple residents who feel that when comments are made at the podium, they were expecting to have not dialogue, but some information back at the next meeting. And my response to that was, well, questions are always addressed at the next, a question that's made is addressed at the next meeting. So I guess my question is, when we have somebody stand up who is questioning but not actually asking questions, is it our intention as a board to prepare a response back?
Well, there's never an intention to immediately respond because it's a comment session.
Prepare a response.
Right, and there's never, I mean, the overall, it's a comment section. It's not necessarily a question and answer. There will be some questions that at times need to be answered, and I guess that's the board's decision on when and what. And there's other times that people ask questions that the board may choose not to answer or can't answer because they may be legal questions or dealing with a student's private information or whatever, right? So that's always been the intent of the public comment section. This is a working meeting of the board, and public comment is welcome, but again, it's the board's meeting. It's not a public working meeting, right? I don't know if that answered it.
Thank you, it does.
I do have, I guess, more of a comment, and this is the first I've heard of it tonight, that these documents aren't being posted. I was always operating under the assumption for the past 8 years of sitting up here that we were putting those documents up. I was wondering if we could just give some type of explanation as to the purpose or the reason why we're not doing that. And I'm sure there is a reason, but I am interested to hear that because it does go to the issue of transparency.
I can answer that for you, Phil. And we have historically not put the documents up. In recommendation of our solicitor, who has said contracts that are put up are not officially public documents until you guys have enacted on them. As Dave said, this is a meeting of the board. I will take responsibility. I accidentally put them up last month. My fault, shouldn't have done it. Prior to that, they have never been put up. In fact, prior to us going on board docs in 2009, we put up just a summary agenda on the website, and documents, if they were wanted by the audience, were under right to know they could get. We have become ultimately transparent by putting everything up. Tomorrow or sometime this week, as soon as we get to the time, we try to do it by Friday, we will put up everything we can that can be public. But that has been historically what it is. I confirmed that with our attorneys today. They confirmed, said I shouldn't have put those documents up last month. That was a mistake on my part. Apologize. You want to smack me around? Go ahead. We'll maybe the audience will smack me around next month or something. So doesn't matter to me, but that's the way it's been. And I'll comment on our budgeting practices while I've got the microphone too. Our budgeting practices are exactly the same as every other school district in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I will tell you that we have done the same type of budgeting since I've been here. It started before my time. So we never changed our budgeting practices in 2010, 11, 12. That's untrue. We operated the same way. You know, we had a lot of things to do because we were losing money. That was the correct response. But as far as budgeting, you want to budget right to the penny, you budget right to the penny. You know, we tried to do that for this coming year, and you can see, as our projections show, we're probably going to overspend our budget. We're pretty darn close this year already. So, you know, just wanted to clear that up as far as our budgeting practices. There's no deception on our part. That's absolutely untrue. You know, that's just a way of getting the public stirred up. People that don't, you know, pay attention to the meetings want to get you guys to get emails from people because they stuff mailboxes or whatever. People I've talked to have sent some of those emails in. When I talk to them, when I start explaining how our taxes, what our taxes are, what we're doing, they're generally fine. So I'm sure you'll get an email about that comment. Sorry.
All right. Any other comments?
Dave, I'd like to bring one other thing up, if I could.
Yeah.
At our last voting meeting, we voted down a contract for professional development. And I wanted to take a moment to talk about that, because that contract was actually money that we budgeted the previous year, that all we had to do was agree to pay in this budget year. That money was allocated to the superintendent in the previous year's budget. We voted that contract down based on the economics of this year's budget. And I really didn't think, as the dialogue ensued between the board members, that they really had a complete understanding that that was money that was given to the administration to spend the way they saw fit in the previous year's budget. And it was voted on and it was voted down. And I didn't think that the board had an understanding. So I wanted to just, if we could cover that for a couple minutes, because I do believe that the administration does have the latitude to spend those dollars the way they see fit. And I don't believe that by us voting that contract down, that we actually gave that latitude to the administration. And I don't want to see that happen again, and that is why I wanted to bring it up.
Well, we approved the budget for spend, or potential spend, and then any, I don't know what the threshold is, any contracts over a certain threshold have to be approved by the budget, or by the board. That in itself gives the board the right to say no. With 5 votes, or majority of whoever was here. That's the way it is. Whether you like it or not, that's just, you know, I mean, you could argue on either side whether or not if we should have done it or shouldn't done it. I wasn't at the meeting, so I can't get into those specific details, but in general, yes, we approve a budget, but we also have to vote on and approve any contract spends, which we as a board have the right to turn down, whether 4 of us like that or not. That's just the way the ball bounces, I guess. I mean, I don't know.
If it's appropriate, I'd like to add a comment. I voted that down with others. I fully support professional development. I believe it's very important. But I work at a company, a profit-making company, and we have a budget, and when revenues are scarce, just like in the school district, we sometimes have to adjust, and we find other ways to do things. So I believe professional development is very important. That was an off-site location, and looking at it from a public perspective, you might say, well, looks like a little bit of a I don't want to use the word frivolous, but does it have to be there? Could it be somewhere more local and cost the district less? So that was my reason for voting it down, not because I don't believe in professional development or anything, just because, and I experience that in business all the time, and I think many of us do, that you have a budget, it's approved in the beginning of the year, but things get tight, and so you find a cheaper way of doing it. And that was my opinion.
And I can tell you from the administrative perspective, we have an objective to meet, and we will meet that objective independent of where that happens. So I'm completely fine with
And I understand that.
the objective of our professional development.
I understand that. I guess I look at it more from the standpoint, and you're 100% right, Dave. It is our right and our ability at any time that we have 5 to make any changes that we want to. But I also believe that, and I feel really strongly about this, and this is why I'm bringing it up. We looked for an employment professional, and we were very specific as to what we were looking for. And we also asked that those professionals, we disclosed what we wanted. We wanted to go to another level, and we asked what was needed to do that. And basically, the answer that we got back was that, yes, the job could be completed, and yes, they'd like some latitude to be able to do that. And to me, that meant the board stays out of the weeds, and I'm just throwing this out there, and I'm not trying to be problematic, and I'm not chastising anyone for how they voted. I truly believe that we have an obligation to our employees, our professional staff, the same as as they have an obligation to us. And I am cautioning that when we do things like that, we are in the weeds and we are supposed to be soaring. I understand that in economic times of crisis, to make a decision to not spend $8,500 on a boat may have to be done, but I don't see that this district is in that position right now. So I would just caution going forward that when these things come up, that we stay true to what we committed and not live in the weeds. Thank you.
Ellen, can I ask you a quick question? And please, don't take this the wrong way, but if it's on the agenda and our job is to vote to approve it or disapprove it, don't we have a right to do that as a board?
Shouldn't we?
We absolutely do, and we should do it. But we also have an obligation to know what our job is and where we're supposed to be in the structure of the organization. We're not being paid to run the school district. We pay professionals to do that. We are being paid to govern the school district. And all I'm saying, Phil, I'm not trying to make bad friends. All I'm saying is that I believe that in the environment that we sit in, we need to stay out of the weeds. And I believe that that promises that were made to us that we could be taken to a different level were kept. And I am in the public. You all want transparency, and I'm being transparent. I would like to go on record right now saying that I would like this board to govern and not try to run this school district, and to allow this administrator to spend the money that we allocate to her the way she would like it. I'm on the record, that's all I wanted. Thank you.
Duly noted. And again, like Phil said, that's why we have that's why we vote on them, and each item has a, all right. Any other board comments?
I'd like to make a comment if I could.
No, sir, the public comment section is over right now, sorry.
Since the,
Bruce, I'm sorry, that's just the way the agenda and
I know
protocol.
what the agenda is, but it's necessary to make a comment, but then
Point of order,
That's not-
move to adjourn.
It's not, you're welcome to come back at the next meeting and make your comment.
back to you right away.
No problem. All right, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes 7-2.